Week 4 of college football is in the books. Welcome into Got It Covered. Giovanni Heater alongside Raza Umarani with you. And Raza, a little bit of a sleepy week this week in college football, but definitely some things to unpack, some things to talk about here for sure.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a nothing week of college football or of any football for that matter, but this definitely was one where we were getting to like 7, 8 p.m. and I was looking forward to those late games kicking off, but like I was just like, oh my goodness, like both those night games were enticing. Don't get me wrong, nothing was making me ready to jump out of my seat. And by 10, I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to call it. If Florida didn't make a little bit of a comeback effort against Miami, I probably would have been honk shoe. But yeah, by 11 o'clock, I flipped the channel to Fox, threw on some USC Michigan State, fell asleep to the sweet sounds of Jason Benetti, and went to work in the morning. So yeah, definitely sleepier, but I mean, nothing is ever uneventful in this sport.
I had quite the long Saturday because we did, of course, our pregame show, which started at 10 a.m. for Syracuse Clemson. Spent the whole day out at this bar that we did the show at. Pregame show right up until kickoff. And then we did a watch party for the actual game where we were live streaming during the game. The game goes into a weather delay at halftime. So we're waiting around, but still on a broadcast throughout the entire delay, the rest of the game, and an hour-long post-game show. So it was quite the lengthy day, but the Orange came away with a big win, which we will talk about later on. Let's start our day in Norman, Oklahoma. Number 11 Oklahoma takes down number 22 Auburn, 24-17 the final score. Jackson Arnold could not get it done in his return to Norman for the Auburn Tigers. John Mateer goes 24-36 for 271 yards and 1 touchdown. On the other side, Jackson Arnold in this quarterback battle goes 21-32, 220 yards through the air and 1 touchdown. Mateer added 29 yards and a score on the ground. You know, this was kind of an interesting game, and my biggest takeaway was the fact that I think Cam Coleman's a beast. Like, he made some really impressive catches for Auburn to help out Jackson Arnold. Oklahoma's defense is suffocating. They finished with 9 sacks. They were getting after Arnold all day long. And, you know, you look at the wide receiver room, I think John Mateer is, for the quarterback spot at Oklahoma, a serious Heisman Trophy contender. Right now, he's the betting odds front runner as it currently sits. He continues to impress week after week, but the guy that jumps out to me, Isaiah Stegna, was sensational through the air. 9 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown, and a very controversial play as well, as he is making an effort to substitute off the field. It appeared, does not leave the field, ball snapped. He's a wide open receiver for a score. So that's certainly a part of the conversation in this game, is the officiating and that play in particular. Nevertheless, Oklahoma continues to roll.
It's crazy you see a game with 22 combined penalties that you think is poorly officiated. Like, sometimes games can be poorly officiated because too much gets called. Sometimes a game can be poorly officiated because somebody gets away with something. This was a case of both. Because I do think a lot of it was ticky-tack. There was like several times. Sean McDonough was like pissed off by the time we got to the fourth quarter. He was like, and another flag coming in. What else is new today? And like he was doing the game with Greg McElroy, and like when they brought in Matt Austin, the rules expert, they were like, everybody was just pissed at everything that was being called. But you're right. Satania had a great game. That was a total BS play. I choose to believe that it was intentional on the part of Oklahoma. And part of me is like, oh, that's just gamesmanship. But the other part of me is like, that's messed up. Like, it's one thing to run a trick play where you run a reverse to your receiver and he throws the ball to your quarterback. That's fun. If you fake a substitution, you get everybody looking one way. It's like, it's pretty messed up. It reminds me, Gio, this is either a case of Raza memory and you're going to think I'm crazy, or you're going to remember it because this was a huge game. Alabama LSU 2019, when Burrow and Tua faced off in that big matchup in Tuscaloosa, there was a play where like Devontae Smith looked over to the sideline. The whole team looked over to the sideline as if they were going to change a play. Yeah. And then Tua claps while looking at the sideline, and LSU's looking at the sideline as well. And he gets the ball, and Devontae Smith beats Derek Stingley because Derek Stingley's flat-footed looking at the sideline. That's another thing where I'm like, that's kind of messed up. But at least that's within the confines of like somebody lined up across from Devontae Smith. Nobody lined up across from John Mateer. This is completely aside from the point. I just didn't like that on the part of Brent Venables and Oklahoma. But my main takeaway from this game, Gio, is that neither of these offenses was shining necessarily. This was a defensive game. You mentioned all the sacks from Oklahoma. I do think Auburn's offensive line struggled, but so much of this falls on Jackson Arnold's shoulders. You can see why they made the move for a guy like Mateer. It's not just because of mobility, because Arnold has wheels. It's because Arnold has no feel in the pocket. When Mateer senses a play is, breaking down, he'll escape and try to make a play. He's not really going to put the ball in harm's way, and he's not going to take a lot of sacks. Arnold has the pocket presence of a traffic cone. Like and they wear the same color jersey, right? Like he's just sat there in the pocket. I felt bad for former Hokie Xavier Chaplin as their starting left tackle. He's going to be an NFL player. It's not his fault. You can't be held. You can't hold up on the edge for 3-4 seconds in the SEC. So did this game do a lot to bolster John Mateer's Heisman chances? In my opinion, no. Did it do enough to damper my feelings about Jackson Arnold? Absolutely. I still really like Auburn's defense, and their weapons are amazing, but they're held back by their quarterback, similar to what Oklahoma was last year.
I thought Jackson Arnold a handful of times was actually bailed out by Coleman in particular, like an underthrown goal ball into double coverage, and Coleman readjusts at midfield and makes this, pretty exceptional catch. So I thought that happened a handful of times. And then to go back to your point, I thought the trick play where you're substituting off, completely bogus. You should not be able to do that. In my opinion, you should not be able to do that. It's just like let's play football. What are we doing? Like I despised that out of Oklahoma. And especially too, like if you're gonna do that, why are you busting it out in this game? Respectfully, you should win this game. You're gonna need that when you play like
do
Alabama
it in Red River. Do it in Red River.
Exactly. I didn't like it at all. I think there needs to be a rule that fixes that rather immediately. I don't think you should be able to do that.
Yeah, and I know the referees in the pool report after the game were like, yeah, we missed that one. That should have been unsportsmanlike conduct. Like I'm sure Hugh Freeze would love to hear that after they lose the game.
Right. Now, yeah, say it after, right.
I still don't think Auburn deserved to win this game because when they took the lead in the fourth, they immediately gave it right back.
Yeah. No, I don't think Auburn deserved to win the game.
Right, but that play is just total nonsense. And when 7 points is the difference in the game, a play like that stands out. So
also, if you miss an unsportsmanlike and then you come out and say it after, or any penalty for that matter, you admit fault after, right? And there's like no repercussion or anything. But say a coach complains about the lack of a call and he gets fined X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
You should get fined as an officiating crew.
Yep.
It should go both ways.
But that's just the way it is, as Tupac Shakur once said, right? Like there's nothing.
That's just the way it is.
There's nothing that can be done about it. Like, referees can do whatever the hell they want in between the lines, but if a player or coach complains about it in a press conference, it's money out of their pocket. So I do feel bad for Auburn in that regard, but Oklahoma was a far better team in this game, and now they're deservedly in the top 10. You're looking at a team that's going to give Texas fits in 2 weeks.
I'll call it right now. Oklahoma's beating Texas.
The way they're currently both playing, it would be hard to disagree.
I could see them winning by a touchdown. I really could. I think Oklahoma's playing like a much better football team than Texas right now, but I digress. And we'll move on to another game of choice here. How about this one? A sneaky top 17 game where number 17 Texas Tech handles number 16 Utah on the road in Salt Lake City. Did not see this one coming by any stretch of the imagination. And Texas Tech is asserting itself as the top team in the Big 12 right now. And I don't think there's a question about that after seeing that performance in Salt Lake.
Best performance I've seen by a number 15 in a Red Raider uniform since a guy by the name of Mahomes was slinging it in the red and black. The fact that Baron Morton was in this game and then, what was it, a concussion?
Yeah.
Right? Like knocked him out.
Yeah, and Will Hammond comes in.
Will Hammond, their backup, comes in and is like the best looking quarterback in the Big 12 all of a sudden. Insane. I got to say, this might have been, listen, in a day of bad football, in a weekend of bad football, we'll talk about the pros eventually. In a weekend of bad football, this first half stands out as perhaps the worst half of football I have ever watched in my life. And I watched the Chiefs and the Giants play yesterday. This was the 5 combined there were almost as many turnovers as points.
Yeah.
5 combined turnovers to 7 points in the first half is unreal.
Yeah.
Devin Dampier looked like he was trying to do too much. I think
2
they're
picks.
they're gonna have to dial him back because listen, I say this a million times. When you know you can make any throw, you think you can make every throw, but you need to be coached out of that because you need to use that talent to make the throws when they're there, not force it like he was forcing. And I give a ton of credit to Texas Tech's defense. I mean, they obviously have those 2 star edge rushers. Their secondary is really good. I can make the argument, nobody has worked the portal better year over year than Texas Tech from last year to this year. All the money that they've invested is going in the right spots. They completely suffocated Utah across the board. And then by the time they got up 17-10, and then it snowballed at the end of the game and got away from Utah but it almost made sense because so many times we say the final score is not what the indication of the game was. I think this was. Texas Tech really dominated this game from start to finish, especially after Hammond got in and things just got settled under control. For you to go on the road and win a game like this at 10 in the morning with a backup quarterback.
True, 10
really
in the morning.
Impressive.
Very true.
Really impressive. So Texas Tech, clear cut now favorite in the Big 12 by, I'd say, a comfortable margin.
The funny thing about Texas Tech, first of all, they feel like the team nobody's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, the thing with Texas Tech is like they're doing it without known commodity star power. None of these guys are people we were talking about coming into the year. And besides Morton, who did you know, on this roster?
Because they're all new.
Exactly.
They're all new.
Like Cameron Dickey's really impressive at times. He ended up having 2 touchdowns in this game. You look at their receiving room. I like Reggie Virgil. I like Jacoby Williams. I like Caleb Douglas. Didn't know any of these guys coming into this season as like household name type of players that we would talk about on a show like this. And I'm curious and fascinated to see how that changes, how their narrative continues to develop throughout the year, because in the same regard, it's similar to Arizona State last year. Nobody was talking about Sam Leavitt. Nobody was talking about Cam Scatteraboo. It was Arizona State picked to finish ho-hum last in the Big 12. So it's fascinating.
The only reason we knew about guys like Tyson and Scatteraboo is because we're the sickos that would watch their 10:30 Friday night kickoffs against like Oregon State on Fox in the last year of the Pac-12. Like that's the way it was. But now you're in a situation where I don't know that they have the best offense in the Big 12, although it certainly looks like they're efficient enough to do it. I think they have the best defense in the Big 12 by a good margin, and that's going to be good enough in this conference to win you games because you can lean on that, and all of a sudden your backup quarterback's having a field day. So it's so important, and I think they've nailed it.
This is proof in the pudding that you can, with NIL now, you can go in one off season.
Correct.
And be a football team.
Correct. Because that's the investment they made. Look at SMU. Look at SMU last year. Like this is what the situation is now.
And they reeled in a 5-star, and they're going to start. That money's going to. People don't understand. Your casual fan doesn't understand the kind of money that these Texas schools play with. They're in a different league.
It's different.
Whether it's the Longhorns, SMU, Texas Tech, like it doesn't matter.
Texas A&M.
It's Texas. Oh, Texas A&M, of course. Like it's that. Huge. It's that oil money, and it's just different. Yep. And they're going to have an upper hand in a lot of situations when it comes to NIL. So fascinating to see how that continues to develop. That was a big reason why people believe that SMU is going to be so successful in the ACC, is because of the resources that they have. So. We back.
What happened?
I somehow left the studio, but it's okay because I have to post produce the graphics anyway. So we're gonna give it a second. But good stuff out of Texas Tech for sure. And we'll move on to our next matchup of discussion here. Let's talk about Florida and Miami.
Do we have to?
We have to for a minute. College game day at Hard Rock Stadium, 26-7, Miami in a fairly boring game, actually a dreadful game to watch, honestly.
So bad.
Beats the brakes off of Florida, and it just was not fun to watch. The thing I take away from this game is Florida is absolutely cooked. It's over. They're eviscerated because this is their upcoming schedule, man. Texas A&M, Mississippi State, who apparently is good enough to win a football game now. Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. They still got to play Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. That's number 10, number 9, number 5, number 13, number 15, and number 8 in the AP poll. It's cooked. It's cooked. I hope you like fried gator. But
yeah, I do actually.
I do as well. But Miami, if I had to pick a team right now that looks like they could win the national championship, I would say it's the Miami Hurricanes. They look built for success like that. They have the quarterback that is proven, right? Like, okay, you want to talk Ohio State, Julian saying, we don't know what that looks like on the big stage in the big games. They haven't really done that yet.
Well, I mean, Texas, but he wasn't great against
I understand. He wasn't great in the game, and let's see him play Penn State. Let's see him play in the Big Ten championship. Let's see him play in the playoffs, things of that nature. And also, is Texas what we thought they were? That's another conversation for another day.
That's true.
So you look at the other national championship contenders. Drew Aller's not playing great football, and nobody's really talking about Penn State either because they've played Western Carolina University of Junior College, in all of their games so far. You have a proven commodity at quarterback in Carson Beck. You have a team that can physically compete in the trenches. You have a good defense, finally, for Miami, a very good defense. Like, on all levels of the field, I think that they might be the best team in the country, honestly.
Yeah, they're my number one right now. It's still a situation where I think we're all waiting for the other shoe to drop for them because we have
What if it doesn't happen, though?
I know, but I'm saying we are still waiting for it.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity to change the narrative, but that's just the way it's going right now. For me, we knew Miami was going to be pretty assertive, I think, in this game. I got to tell you, I'm not unimpressed with Florida's defense. I thought after the first quarter, they really locked in. Obviously, Miami was moving the ball up and down on them in the first quarter.
Can I interrupt you for
of course,
maybe a hot take? I don't know that Miami for the rest of the regular season will play a defense as good as the one they played on Saturday against Florida.
They do play Florida State, but Florida's defense is pretty legit. I mean, Florida State's got some pretty good players, maybe not as big up front, but we saw what they did to Bama, and that's no slouch. Even, we have our thoughts about Bama, but that's a fascinating game in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we know Miami's how good they are. They're up to number 2 in the AP poll. I think they're a smidge away from being number 1. I'd probably have them number 1 just based on their body of work. We also knew it was cooked for Florida, but now I'm getting to a point where, and I think I texted you this, or I texted somebody during the game. For as long as Billy Napier is going to retain that job, I don't know why he's choosing to die on the DJ Lagway sword. I understand that's your guy. I understand you don't want to shake up the confidence of your 19-year-old quarterback, but I think you are doing your team a disservice by keeping him as the quarterback. He has what now 6 interceptions to 5 touchdowns this season. 5 of them obviously came, or no, he had more than 1 interception in this game, right? He didn't throw any interceptions.
He didn't throw any picks.
Could barely
threw for 61 yards.
He could barely throw the ball, period. I mean, it's just unreal. Like their offense is so bad.
Dude, they accounted for 80 yards on the ground and 61 yards through the air.
Yeah, they have
insane.
They have no downfield threat passing. They have no threat of the run, even with a guy like Lagway. And Lagway back there has seemingly lost his confidence. He's lost any swag that he had at the end of last year. Again, a sign of poor coaching is how easily shaken a team can be. They were shaken by USF, and they haven't looked the same since. They've got to make a change. And I'm sitting here as the guy who couldn't tell you who Florida's backup quarterback is. I just feel like it's a disservice to your program and to the players who are still playing hard to throw. I mean, the dude looks like, Washington Redskins legend, Mike Sellers. He looks like that Mike Sellers, a fullback back there throwing the ball as if it was a trick play or something. Like, he cannot read the field. He has no confidence. They have no passing threat. They have no receivers. It's just a mess. And Napier was an offensive guy, and this team can't play offense. And I feel really bad for them. And I feel bad for Lagway. But again, I think you got to make a change. I know Napier wants to ride it out, but it makes no sense to me.
How about Michigan going on the road to Nebraska and taking them down in Lincoln 30-27? They do it by toting the rock for 290 yards on the ground. Justice Haynes had 149 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Bryce Underwood only threw the ball for 105 yards in this game. They attempted 22 passes. This was like old school Michigan football when it came to toting the rock.
It was fun to watch, but it also felt like when you turn down the CPU tackling slider and you turn up the user break tackle slider to it's like 100-0. Nebraska could not tackle a scarecrow standing in an open field. Like, they are such a poor tackling team. I give a ton of credit to Michigan. Justice Haynes is a dog. Bryce Underwood is you're starting to see him get more comfortable by the game. He looks really, really settled in now. But Nebraska's tackling is some of the worst I've seen in college football this year. I think that was the worst tackling performance I had seen in football that year and this year. And I got to give Nebraska's offense credit for showing up in this game. I thought Raiola played one of his better games of his career, but the sentiment was that it didn't matter what Nebraska did offensively because their defense was just going to blow it. And that happened time and time again. And really, you're looking at a more lopsided result than it probably should have been if it wasn't for a admittedly impressive Hail Mary at the end of the first half. So strange game for Nebraska because they never looked like themselves, and their defense was as poor as they play. I mean, you said it, you can't give up 300 yards on the ground. You're not facing Derrick Henry, with all due respect. So I think they've got a lot of soul searching to do. Nebraska, still they're now bordering on 30 straight ranked losses. That's unreal. It's different story. Sorry, like the same story with a different coach under Matt Rule. And I feel bad because I like him. I think he's a great offensive mind, but what doesn't matter when you can't tackle, you can't stop the run. So I like what I saw from Raiola in this game for Nebraska. That's about it. But Michigan, they can tote the rock.
Raiola did go 30 of 41 for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Worth noting that 50 of those yards did come on the Hail Mary.
And one of the touchdowns, obviously.
I thought Raiola did look sharp in this game. It really came down to Nebraska's defense, no question about it, and not being able to stop the run. Next game I want to talk about, man. We did not see this thing coming in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I picked the opposing team that got blown out to go in there and win this game. We got to clap it up for Curt Cignetti. The Indiana Hoosiers absolutely took it to Mr. Bielema and the Fighting Illini. Indiana wins this game at home 63-10. It was a blowout. Fernando Mendoza in this game at quarterback for Indiana goes 21 of 23. You cannot get more efficient than that in college football. For 267 yards and 5 touchdowns, his quarterback rating was 93.6. And on top of it, they ran the ball for 312 yards. It was murder.
This game would have been rated. This game would have been rated NC-17 at your local Blockbuster. It was It's the type of stuff that should be banned from the internet for gore and violence. This is your drive chart. Okay. Both teams trade punts to start the game. Then Illinois punts, it gets blocked for an Indiana touchdown. They respond with a long touchdown on the coverage bust. Then Indiana responds with a touchdown. Then again, both teams trade punts. When Illinois punts it back to Indiana at the start of the second quarter.
Yeah, it was a slow start.
It was. Indiana goes touchdown, Illinois punts. Indiana touchdown, Illinois punt. Indiana touchdown, Illinois ends the half. Indiana touchdown, Illinois punt. Indiana touchdown, Illinois punt. Indiana touchdown, Illinois punt. Indiana touchdown, Illinois throws a pick, and Indiana runs out the clock. That's just ridiculous. When a game is so lopsided, it's hard to say like what was the difference. It was just everywhere. Obviously the running game is unreal, but I want to take this second to shout out Fernando Mendoza, a guy I was high on coming into the year. Sure. I remember we did our Heisman sleepers, and I was like, if they made it work with Rourke, I think they upgraded at quarterback with Mendoza. So what does that look like? That's what that looks like. Illinois is no joke, man. We know their defense is talented. We know their offense is really good. So I give a ton of credit to Indiana's defense as well, because that was a problem for them at times last year. No, they look better than they were last year, to be frank. And Mendoza has, on a national scale, played his way into a first-round quarterback type of conversation, regardless of what happens in terms of individual accolades this year, like a Heisman Trophy or whatever. Everybody all of a sudden has Fernando Mendoza mocked in the first round, and you can see it, man. Honestly, if you turned on like the black and white filter, he kind of looks like Carson Beck. And it's not because he wears 15 like Beck did at Georgia. It's like they're both tall, commanding presence in the pocket. They're able to read the field pretty decisively. Like they both look like pros, but the way Mendoza is throwing the ball right now in terms of his accuracy, his decisiveness, his quickness, that touchdown he had in the back of the end zone, I think, to make it 21-7.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's the best throw I've seen in college football this year. Like, genuinely. It was a 15-yard touchdown, but the window, the zip, put it where only his guy could get it. And I'm like, wow, you don't see that. Don't see that every day. So shout out to my boy Fernando. I know it was tough to transfer from Cal. You made the right decision. In Indiana, their schedule isn't that hard again. So you could see a situation here where, again, Indiana just banks wins against the kind of muck of the Big Ten, and they find their way back in the playoffs the way we thought Illinois could.
It's different this year for Indiana. Here's why. We knew Illinois was, I guess we can't say good, but solid, very solid. We knew that. Mm-hmm. We saw them beat the brakes off of Duke, who we were high on. Now
they're not bad.
They're right. Illinois is a good football team with a good quarterback, and they have proof in the pudding of that. Indiana last year was this awesome story, and they got their way into the playoff, and you just kind of knew. You were like, when they play somebody real, because they had such a cupcake schedule, when they play somebody real, they might get cooked. And they did. Notre Dame did that to them. No question.
Ohio State too.
And this looks like a team this year, because they really kept adding on to it. This looks like a team this year that can seriously compete. I'm not saying they're going to make a run to the national championship. I'm saying they're not going to get blown out in the playoffs this year if they make it. I see a real world where Indiana is a serious competitor in the playoff. And this game showed us that. Here's what impressed me the most in this game. It actually had nothing to do with the offense. It's awesome that you put up 63 points and all that. You mentioned last year the fact that particularly against the run and in that Notre Dame game, Indiana really struggled to stop Jeremiah Love in the run. Illinois amassed 2 rushing yards in this game, Raza. 2 yards on the ground. That's it.
Insane.
That's insane.
To 300 whatever.
To 312.
It's ridiculous.
That was the most impressive thing to me, is the fact that they held them to 2 rushing yards. Net yards, they had 29 net yards on the ground, and then Altmaier was sacked for 27 yards.
It's crazy. I mean, they're legit. They look legit on both sides of the ball. I know, like, they struggled. They got off to a slow start against Old Dominion or whatever. But
Old
I mean, in
Dominion's
their
good.
Old Dominion's not bad.
And they won the
And then
game.
in their last 3 games, one of them admittedly against an FCS opponent, they've scored 63, 73, and 56. So, like,
They're a wagon.
while giving up 10, 0, and 9.
Kurt Cignetti might be one of the best coaches in college football.
I completely agree. And you're talking about a team that's worked the portal. They've done it pretty well. So I will say they go to Oregon in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in the year, they go to Penn State. 2 tough road tests. Tough to win either of those games. I'll be watching them with a super keen eye. I also have to say the nerd in me cannot wait to watch them go to Maryland, because a Fernando Mendoza, Malik Washington quarterback matchup is going to make my fingers tingle a little bit. So love Indiana, love Cignetti. Awesome win for them. I said they would win, but you said it. I didn't see that coming. That was amazing.
Is there a world in which they could lose to Oregon and Penn State and still make the playoff? You see that happening?
Yeah, if they lose,
I could definitely see it.
If the rest of college football cannibalizes itself, I mean, 2 losses is not enough to eliminate you. If
they wouldn't play in the Big Ten title in that case.
That's right. And if Illinois looks good enough down the stretch that looks like an extremely quality win, like if they go out and beat USC this weekend, and if they give Ohio State a push or whatever, like that also plays a big role here. So ideally, you don't want to lose both. You put yourself behind the 8 ball there, but I do think there's a path if they lose both.
Yeah, it'd be tough because then you'd be looking at the Big Ten needing to get 4 in.
Yeah,
because
which is not impossible.
It's not impossible. I do think it's a lock that Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are probably in.
Yeah, the way those teams are playing, right, especially Oregon. Holy smokes!
Yeah, dude, that's another team we have to talk about national championship contending for sure. Let's go ahead and talk about one more game though. Syracuse goes into Clemson and beats the brakes off of the Tigers in this game. Like, the final score of a 13-point difference does not represent how lopsided this game was. Syracuse went in there and took it to them. And they beat them. They were more physical. They clearly wanted it more. And Fran Brown outcoached Dabo Swinney in this game. And Syracuse looked like the much more prepared team on Saturday than Clemson. They go in there and how about the lower intestinal fortitude on Fran Brown to go in there, touchdown on the opening drive, surprise onside kick to steal an extra possession and go up 10-0 before almost was 14-0. Very close to it. Angeli was cooking. They got inside the 5-yard line and couldn't punch it in, went for a field goal. Clemson didn't touch the ball till they were down 10-0. And Syracuse's defense was all over the place, forcing turnovers, a fumble, an interception. So much pressure on Cade Klubnik. Clemson's offensive line looked terrible. Syracuse coming into this game too was struggling to create pressure on opposing quarterbacks. It was not a strength of theirs. They had 3 sacks on the entire season in 3 games. And they got after Klubnik. It didn't result in a ton of sacks, but they had 32 quarterback hurries in this game.
That's crazy.
Klubnik's just really good at extending plays. And I said that the entire game while we were on the air. I was like, if Syracuse was playing pretty much any other team right now, they'd probably have like 5 sacks. But it's just Klubnik so good at extending the play that he was at least extending it, and it still never turned into much. So they were getting after it. Cuse's offense looked surgical. Steve Angeli tears his Achilles, underwent surgery today. But the good thing of your Syracuse is you had a huge quarterback battle between a former 4-star from LSU and a former Notre Dame quarterback. And the Notre Dame guy won. You still got this 4-star from LSU.
Who had the reps with the ones in the spring.
Who was named the starting quarterback in the spring. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation than that if you're Syracuse, if your starting quarterback goes out, who you have in reserve. And it all comes to Jeff Collins, the offensive coordinator for them. A lot of people pointed to last year and said, oh, Kyle McCord's amazing, which he was. Of course. Doesn't happen without the quarterback. But then all of a sudden you got 4 weeks into this year, and Steve Angeli was leading the nation in passing, which Kyle McCord led the nation in passing last year. And on top of it, before he gets hurt in the second half, he made a statement in that first half. And then the first couple of drives of the second half, they went down and he threw like a 60-yard bomb over the middle to Jonte Cook. Like, he looked precise and surgical in this game. And it stinks that you lose him for the year. But I think it just goes to show that, okay, this has a lot more to do with Jeff Nixon than originally expected. He was getting talked to by the Houston Texans for an offensive coordinator position. Chose to stay at Syracuse. His son's the starting running back. His daughter's on the soccer team, a sophomore on the soccer team. Chose to stay at Syracuse. I think they find a way to make it work with Ricky Collins. Like, I think Syracuse is better than people thought, and their schedule also looks a lot lighter than it originally did. Like, who says they don't go to SMU and win?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the hardest game on the schedule was supposed to be at Clemson. They just won that by double digits.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, I guess, is the toughest one left, right?
And at Miami.
Oh, true. Holy
you still got to play, but you got Clemson and Tennessee out of the way and won one of them. You got Duke this week. You could beat Duke in the Dome. It's a sellout.
No question.
They should beat Duke in the Dome. You go to SMU next week. SMU's a 2-loss football team. I think you could beat SMU. After that, you play Pitt. You still got to play Boston College this year. You play at Miami. You play at Notre Dame. You play at Georgia Tech. I think you can make a serious argument that Syracuse is going to be competitive and should have a chance to win every game.
Yeah, they're a team that...
I didn't say they're going to win the game.
Right, because they are incredibly well coached. I mean, you don't see a lot of guys leave a not just a fingerprint or a palm print. They leave like a body print on a program the way Fran Brown has at Syracuse. It's like, it gets you going. You know what I'm saying? Like, seeing the way he acts. We said it a couple weeks ago, dude. Everybody that was hating on him for making his guys run sprints, I was like, I freaking love it. And what did they do? They come out and they smack Clemson. Like, it doesn't happen for no reason. I understand, like, they played Colgate the week after, but that it carries over the course of a few weeks. So I love Fran Brown. I think he's such an awesome guy to root for. He's an awesome guy to watch operate this program from afar, even though it's not a big name program. Like, they're not going to get a ton of national love. If you just pay attention to what Fran Brown does in that building, it's really cool. One last thing about Syracuse, then I'll touch on Clemson.
Yeah, and I want to touch on Clemson too. Yeah,
I agree with what you said about being competitive in every game again because of their coaching. But I am curious to see how the offense looks with Collins at quarterback, because I think you can't ask him to be the same player that Angeli was, which is in effect asking him to be the guy that kind of McCord was last year. Collins, I think, is not a pocket passer by nature, right? You want to get him moving a little bit, and Angeli has the wheels, to be fair. But, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Angeli and Collins. Angeli won the job because he ran the offense they wanted him to.
Yeah.
Are they going to ask Collins to run the offense that way, or are they going to do this offense around Ricky and his skill set? That's going to be what's interesting for me to watch.
Yeah. The thing that, and I completely agree with what you're saying, the things that perked my interest were Fran Brown said today, he was like, people think of Ricky, because he talked to the media today with his Monday press conference. He's like, people think of Ricky as a runner first, or as running being his biggest strength. First of all, nobody's seen Ricky play because there's no tape. You know what I mean? And he's like, Ricky's a really good passer, which is why we brought him here. He just has the additional ability to run because he's a very athletic football player. Mm-hmm. And he also said,
which is the way his boy at LSU was when he was learning under him. So I wonder if that's passed on a little bit.
Jaden Daniels, of course. And Fran said, like, basically made that statement today and he said, Ricky's going to throw the ball. Ricky is going to throw the ball was his emphasis. And a big dialogue in the spring. So Kyle McCord, for those that don't know, stuck around in the spring. Basically kept training for the NFL. Remember, he put in a a waiver at one point to try and get an extra year eligibility from the NCAA. Hadn't heard back in time, withdrew it, and went to the NFL because it was running out of time to make that decision. But he was essentially a GA, view it that way, in the spring for Syracuse. And he's documented saying that there's not, like, he was very impressed with Ricky's arm talent and said there's not a throw that guy can't make. And then you finally saw a piece of it. First of all, he came in and like did what he needed to do to win that game against Clemson. Steve went out on like the second drive of the second half. Like,
yeah, after the delay.
After the delay. So Ricky played a lot of the second half of that game, right? And Ricky throws this touchdown pass. It's like a back shoulder. It's very McCord-esque. Like a back shoulder throw, puts it low in a spot where literally the only person that can possibly catch that football is his receiver. And I was like, that's a really good throw. Didn't put the ball in harm's way. Tight coverage, one-on-one in the end zone. It's either a catch or an incompletion, period. And it's a touchdown. And those are the kinds of throws McCord was talking about, that he can make all of the throws. It was a very McCord-esque type of throw out of Ricky Collins. And I think Syracuse fans looked at that and they're like, and this wasn't like a 5-yard pass. This was like a 15-yard touchdown. Syracuse fans looked at that like, okay, like this kid can throw the ball.
Right.
The kid can throw the ball. So it was also documented that it was a really close battle. Like they almost went with Ricky. So, you know, I wish it was Steve just because we have the proof that he was humming.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's talk about Clemson. This is obviously an all-time low for the Tigers. They have not started 1-3 since 2004. First of all, you hate to see it because I don't find Dabo Swinney to be unlikable. I have a ton of respect for Dabo Swinney.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've watched Syracuse lose to that team a lot. So don't get me wrong. It was elation on Saturday. It's just the most head-scratching thing I think I've ever seen. Because you could point to Florida State last year as like, okay,
but they lost everybody.
They lost everybody, and their coach had one good year. Dabo Swinney's dominated the ACC with 8 of the last 10 conference championships and 2 national titles. This is a different level of collapse.
Yeah.
And it's just so mind-boggling. Actually, I'm at a loss for words, so I'm going to let you talk.
It makes no sense. This is a team I picked to win the national championship. This is a team with 4 maybe first-round picks. One of them for the season being the quarterback, and the other 3 probably being defensive players, with another guy that's going to be a first-round pick, maybe one of the first receivers off the board in next year's draft. You said it, right? Mind-boggling. It's perplexing. You can use all of the synonyms and adjectives in the world that you want for this. It just makes no damn sense how a team that returned all this talent that we know is good is so bad. I've seen so many people be, there's finger pointing everywhere. Different people are blaming different people, whatever. It's the coordinators. It's Tom Allen and Garrett Riley, or it's Dabo Swinney, or it's the transfer portal or lack thereof, or it's Cade Klubnik. It's really, no matter which way you look at it, a systemic failure. It's everything. Okay. They don't utilize the transfer portal. And as much as that can be a benefit, it can also be a weakness when everybody else can catch up. Syracuse utilizes the portal like nobody else in the ACC, and look at what the result was on Saturday. Okay. Cade Klubnik, I said it last week, sucks. He's just terrible. He's not the player he was last year or even the year before. He can't read defenses. He looks scared. He looks like he has no confidence, and he can't throw the ball on the run the way that he did previously. So when he does leave the pocket, it looks like a disaster. Their receiving core is banged up. Their starting running back, his credit is a converted wide receiver. And while their defensive players do stand out, you're not Myles Garrett, right? Like TJ Parker, Peter Woods are great players, but it's so hard for you to change the game completely from your position. Even though I love guys like Parker and Woods and Terrell and Sammy Brown and everything, the defense as a whole is collectively failing. And while I think it's been stronger than the offense, you can't give up whatever it was, 24 points in the first half to Syracuse at home. You can't give up 24 points in the first half to anyone at home. You are Clemson, and you have a lot of soul searching to do. Dabo is like unhinged in his press conferences. I have no idea where they go. It's crazy to think of the idea of Dabo being fired. You might lean in the direction of like being persuaded to retire by the administration, so that it's kind of a clean break for both sides.
It's like, how much respect has he earned?
A ton, man. It's
8 conference titles and 2 national championships. You can't.
He's gonna have a statue outside of Death Valley. He's going to have a statue.
Clemson is not Clemson without Dabo.
That's right.
And they're being so reactionary to what's happening now, and I get that, but I don't think there's a world where you can fire him for one year. And I get it's been a slow decline.
I also don't think he's built for this new era of collegiate athletics. You need to adapt. Look at like even a program like Ohio State wasn't huge in the transfer portal previously. What happened the year after they went and splurged in the portal? They won a national championship. Oregon's doing the same thing. Penn State returned all their homegrown talent. We'll see how it plays out for them, but they haven't looked crazy impressive in the first 3 weeks.
But they went out and they added a ton of wide receivers out of the portal.
That's true, but like a lot of like last year's team was a lot of homegrown talent. Like they added those receivers because they lost all those other guys. Like outside of those receivers, they hadn't really.
And that's why we said they were going to be so good. We were like, look how close they were. They couldn't catch the ball, and now they're going to be able to do that.
So Clemson is a perplexing example of just because you return X, Y, and Z doesn't really mean jack. And I think they're poorly coached. I think their quarterback is not playing at a level that can elevate anybody. In fact, it's bringing everybody down. It's a systemic failure, and I would currently be surprised if Dabo is coaching there next year. But
wow.
Again, are we waiting for the other shoe to drop here? Is this a classic case of Clemson figures it out in the middle of the year, or is it too late? Are these guys quitting on it?
1-3. You lose the locker room when things like that happen.
Yeah, I give a ton of props to Avion Terrell for wrapping his arm around Dabo when he was a little emotional, singing the alma mater after the game, wiping away the tears. I give a ton of credit to that kid. NFL GMs will like that one. I think that might have been a strategic move on his part, but I don't see how it's going to become untenable.
It's bad when former Clemson players are taking to social media saying like, there's no world where Clemson football players should look unprepared. And like they didn't show up ready to play. And that's what it looked like. Like Syracuse took it to them, period.
Yes. Which should never happen. There's like 5 programs that should ever be able to do that to Clemson.
Syracuse went in there with the nation's leading passer as 17.5-point underdogs. You know what their running back did though? Okay, forget the pass game. The pass game was elite. You know what Syracuse's running back did? Yassine Willis averaged 8.6 yards a carry in the first half and had 100 yards in the first half on the ground. They bullied them. They pushed them around. Syracuse dominated the football game. Crazy.
So you think it's difficult for Clemson to fire him. What do you do?
I think he leaves and takes a different job and avoids that completely.
You think he stays coaching, or is he headed to ACC huddle?
I think
there's a world where he retires.
He's going to be the head coach at Alabama.
I would be floored if that happens. I think that would not be a good hire by Alabama, to be frank with you. Like, you need to be. You know why Saban retired? He couldn't deal with this nonsense anymore.
He didn't want to deal with it.
Let me Coach disagree. K retired, and Roy Williams and Tony Bennett and Bruce Pearl in college basketball. All these guys, they do not want to deal with this, and I don't think Dabo wants to deal with it, and he can't keep getting away with it. So,
I think Saban would have been fine. He didn't want to deal with it.
That's right. Dabo willfully neglects it, and now he's reaping what he's sowing, and he's like, college game day doesn't sound so bad after all. So I don't think he's there next year. I think he leaves. I don't know that they fire him. I think he's persuaded. Yeah. He's pushed into retirement.
I don't think they fire him, or at least that's not how it's publicized. I agree with you there.
I do have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
Syracuse injury related.
Okay.
One, I hate to speculate on this or anything like that, but do you think that weather delay, however long it was, a couple of hours, right, for the storms. Did that have an impact on the injuries that Syracuse sustained in the second half, do you think? Like, is it just it's so hard to come out and deal with that on the
Well,
other side of a break?
the problem is in the first half, Angeli had a play where he like tweaked his knee, right?
Mm.
And comes out of the weather delay with a brace on his knee. And I said on the broadcast, I said, as soon as he went down, I said, I don't want to speculate. I'm not a doctor, but I believe that's an Achilles, and here's why. Because a lot of people were like, oh, high ankle sprain, the way his foot turned. And I was like, I get it. You don't see like, the classic popping of the calf type of thing. And I was like, I think it's Achilles, and here's why. They say that when you have an injury somewhere, really anywhere in your body, but particularly in your legs, naturally, to compensate for that pain, if you continue to play, you're distributing your weight differently, and you're trying to avoid that pain. So you're
Yeah,
running a little bit
naturally.
differently, naturally. So he's running upfield with this brace on his leg, the same leg, by the way, and he's changing the way that he's running to compensate for the injury that he had already sustained to his knee. And then in doing so, your feet are placed differently, and then boom, your Achilles is out the door. I'm sure they stayed loose and stuff, but I'm sure sitting around for 2 hours didn't help matters as far as your body being physically ready. And he went out pretty quick into the second half. He had a nice drive, maybe 2 drives. He went out early in the third quarter. And that was that. But I think it all stems back to the first injury, even though it's not the same body part. It stems to he was running differently to compensate.
Yeah, we see so many times a strain, like a calf. Think about Tyrese Halliburton or Damian Lillard, right? Calf strain turns into Achilles tear when you try to play on it and mess it up. And then I'll end with this question.
Yeah.
Faking injuries, fiasco,
Yes.
Cade Klubnik complaining to the media today. Syracuse gets fined by the conference.
$25,000.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, Syracuse is doing something that I do believe pretty much every team in college football does. The problem is Syracuse is horrible at doing it without getting caught. Awful. You can see so many times, particularly in the Tennessee game. I actually didn't see it a ton in the Clemson game. I think it rooted from the fact that it was happening, and I don't doubt that it was happening in the Clemson game. It just wasn't as obvious. It was happening, but it rooted from the fact that they probably were already warned once or something, because in the Tennessee game, you had a situation where Deuce Chestnut and Demetrius Samuel Jr. are both looking to the sideline. You see with the camera shot, you see the coaches saying, go down. You can read their lips, go down, and going like this. Then they both fall. And midway to the ground, Deuce Chestnut sees Demetrius Samuel on the ground and like gets back up. And then he's looking around, and everyone and the broadcasters called it out, and they're like, you got to be a little less obvious than that. So it's happening, period. Tennessee was also doing it in the game. And I think it happens across college football. Kirk Herbstreit went on a rant on game day last year about this being a problem. So it's not just Syracuse. Unfortunately, they're the first to get caught, like get fined for it. The only gripe I have with it is like your Golden Boys are 1-3 and they're complaining about it. And because of how much respect Dabo has garnered in this conference, I think that's why a fine was like assigned. I feel like if the SMU Mustangs were complaining, I don't know if a fine is assessed, but I also think it has to do with the fact that this is not Syracuse's first time in timeout. If that, even though that wasn't a conference game against Tennessee. So I think those two play into it.
I don't know that everybody does it. I see it all the time in the SEC. So in my mind, this is like one of the tricks of the trade that Fran is
maybe Dabo learned it from Kirby.
Yeah, I mean they both have. I mean, this is something they might have done at Georgia when Fran was there, and it's definitely something that Clemson has seen before. So like I get that sentiment. But yeah, if you're gonna do it, man, just have a code word or something. Don't say go down from the sideline. Say like apples, and then somebody goes down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Be more.
They need to be more discreet for sure, and not have two guys go down.
Right.
You got to have assignments as to who's going to be the guy going down. So, No, you can't look at that and be upset if you're Syracuse. Like, you know, it wasn't a
hefty
gargantuan.
fine though. Hefty fine.
Yep, hefty fine. There were some things in that game, like not to like go down a rabbit hole, but like it felt very. And I would have said it if it was Duke in the game, if it was anybody else, Louisville, whatever. Like, there's a spot in the game where Clemson's trailing, but they kind of have a chance to get back into it. Klubnik gets them inside like the 10-yard line, and it's a huge third down, and he's scrambling. Syracuse's coverage is excellent. He has nowhere to throw the ball, so he tries to take off with his legs upfield and gets blasted, right? It was like such a momentum play, like third down in the red zone, and you just got lit up. You know what I mean? And all the player did was he got up and just tapped his helmet like this and was celebrating like players do on every play. It happens every play. Anytime anybody makes a tackle, they celebrate like that, particularly a tackle for loss. And they called taunting. Automatic first down.
That was an unbelievable call.
And it's just like, how in that spot in the game are you going to call that? You could call taunting on literally every play. How are you calling that in that spot? It just, I don't like to get into like the conspiracy theories and stuff. I don't want to think it's happening, but it screamed like protecting Clemson. It just screamed that. And I was like, how do you call that in that moment? You could call taunting on every play of the football game at that point. And kudos to Fran. Instead of getting on the refs, he got on the player. And he was screaming at the player like, and then the trust, that's the kind of coach Fran is, put him back in the game, and he still played phenomenal the rest of the game. Came up with a big play later. But
like I said, extremely well coached.
Yeah. So you can't protect them forever. They're 1-3.
No, well, they can't protect themselves. So
true. This was fun. This was a long one, buddy.
Yeah, we really delved into that one.
We did. Game. I'm sorry. We'll make it its own separate video though, in addition, for sure. Any other final thoughts before we let the people go? Let them know where they can find us.
Well, they can obviously find us on all socials at Got It Covered FB. That's Instagram, TikTok. Obvious Twitter is a big one, wherever you might find your content, and the good old tube. I don't have many other thoughts on college football at large. It was a pretty nothing weekend. I want to shout out Tech for getting their first win of the season. Well done, Hoax. Well done, Philip Montgomery. I don't care who you play. Shows up as a win in the column no matter what. I texted this to you. If we were giving out a September Heisman, mine would go to Dante Moore. Oregon is pummeling everybody they play. Ole Miss, really
got two quarterbacks,
really good offensively. They're going to give LSU some fits. I know LSU obviously has an incredible defense, so that's going to be an awesome game this week that we'll break down. And Notre Dame, your defense stinks, my friend. You got a tough one coming up against Arkansas, so watch out. Notre Dame. I don't know that Notre Dame ends the year as a 2-loss team, to be honest with you.
Former Cicero North Syracuse North Star running back Mike Washington for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
I thought you were about to tell me that like Talon Green played at CNS. I was like, what?
No, but Mike Washington, their starting running back, number 4.
There you go. So Mike Washington with 330 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. That's a dog.
We graduated the same year. He was a beast in high school. He would just break away these 80-yard touchdown runs, took him to the state semifinals.
Birthplace Utica, New York.
Yeah, he was a dog. And he's had an interesting journey. Went to Buffalo out of school, then went to New Mexico State, I believe, and then now he's at Arkansas. So he's kind of worked his way up.
Yeah, so Notre Dame, between a tough one at Arkansas, you got to play USC and some other decent offenses the course of the season. I know the rest of the schedule is easy, but there's a real chance that they lose because their defense is awful. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll come at you tomorrow with NFL recap. And then after that, we'll have our picks later on in the week. So appreciate everyone stopping by and hanging out. Raza, what do we have the people?
We got them covered.